and thought it would be really great to bring them here to describe a little bit about what they do to this group. So if we're ready to go, you all can take it away.
All right, that sounds good. Hi, everybody. I'm Leah Hillman. I am our Senior Impact Manager here at Jones Valley Teaching Farm. I've been with the organization now for over 9 years. Mohammed Jallo is joining me, and he is the Youth Pathways and Experiences Program Manager, I believe, or something close to that. We've changed titles and the department's name a couple of times, so we're still trying to get a hang of it. But Mohammed's also at another meeting, so I think he might stay off camera and we'll kind of loop in as needed. But I am going to just share initially a short little presentation just about who we are at Jones Valley, kind of an overview of everything we do, and then we'll dig in specifically to the high school internship and apprenticeship model. So just wanted to kind of share our mission and vision first, just to kind of anchor us in what we do. We envision communities inspired by food and transformed by youth. So youth and students are at the center of every decision that we make. Jones Valley Teaching Farm uses food as a foundation so that young people can lead, create, and grow a healthy future for themselves and their community. For a long time, we just kept saying food is our foundation and people grow here. And so that has now kind of been, that's also morphed into kind of every decision that we're making. We're looking for those growth opportunities specifically for young folks that we work with. So a little bit about our organization. We are a nonprofit that solely deals in food-based education. We have 7 different teaching farms across the city of Birmingham. 6 of those teaching farms are on Birmingham City School campuses. So we largely work with Birmingham City Schools district as a whole. Our one farm that is not on a school campus is our downtown campus at the Center for Food Education, right in the heart of downtown Birmingham. At this site is where we open up for field trips, camps, community workshops. We have a community garden on site. And then we also have a small farm that is dedicated to a Birmingham City school that's a block away. So we do have 7 partner schools. Let's see, 5 of those partner schools all exist within the same feeder pattern. So that we are seeing students all the way from the time that they start school in pre-K and then in school in 12th grade. The 2 outliers, Glen Iris Elementary and then Phillips K-8. Glen Iris was our pilot school. So that one falls outside of that feeder pattern. And then Phillips, the school that is a block away, also falls outside of that feeder pattern. This year, we have 3 full-time apprentices, and that number will likely be growing throughout the year. You'll hear a little bit more about the apprenticeship program here in a few minutes, and why that number is low at the moment, but could be growing throughout this year. We have 10 high school interns, all who started in August with us, and we're very excited about them. I think this is our... trying to do the math. This is our 5th or 6th year. Mohammed might be able to correct me, of our high school internship program. Something that COVID allowed us to do was shift to a free produce and seedling distribution model. Originally, we had sold produce at a local market, but since COVID, we've shifted that to provide free produce at all of our farm stands and school sites. So just a few stats here. In this past school year, we've just tallied all these numbers. So they're very exciting. We're really excited to share them with folks. We were able to distribute over 26,000 seedlings to community partners and neighbors. And so those are individuals, those are organizations, with a community garden on site, maybe faith-based organizations. Some are other schools that have smaller garden programs in the area. It's a whole range of folks. And we were able to distribute close to 20,000 pounds of free produce to the city. Overall, yearly, we reach close to 5,000 students. So those are students at our partner schools that I mentioned, as well as students who are coming to the Center for Food Education for field trips and summer programming. And this past year, we had a total of 35 Good Community Food Fellows. Talk a little bit more about that as well, but that is our community garden program. So here are just a few of our teaching farms. You'll see the one on the top left is the Center for Food Education. That's our main hub, about 2 acres of growing space there in downtown Birmingham. And then I mentioned Glen Iris. We have 2 other elementary schools, a middle school, a K-8, and then Woodlawn High School, which is also, I believe, close to 2 acres of growing space. Just a little quick timeline of what our program is, Good School Food. In 2012, we've been around since 2002, but we were originally called Jones Valley Urban Farm. In 2012, we decided to rebrand and really shift to focus on education and Birmingham City Schools itself. So from 2012 all the way to 2015, we built out all of those lovely school sites very rapidly over those few years. And then when the high school was finished, we launched our high school internship. Now, after the first 2 years of that internship being in operation, we made a shift as an organization to create a program for the youth that we were working with. And that started as the apprenticeship. And that was for youth who had gone through our program and graduated, but maybe didn't necessarily know exactly what their next step was, or they were interested in the work that we were doing and kind of learning more about this food chain as a whole. And we were interested in learning how to plug them into pathways and experiences that we could. In 2021 is when the Center for Food Education was finished, and we were able to extend and expand our impact to students across the city and the state. And then just this past year was our true launch of camps and field trips and our Good Community Food program. So I've already mentioned kind of like what we do at the center. We have a large teaching kitchen on site, classroom space, as well as the operational farm, 35 community garden beds, and then a farm stand that is open Monday through Saturday. So we always talk about the key to the success of the model that we have had is the recognition that students themselves are our community's most valuable resource. And that is why we root all of our decisions with youth in mind. So again, just an overview of like who we are and how we operate. These are our 3 of our strategic goals. One is advancing the educational attainment and equitable learning opportunities for pre-K through 12th youth, which we do through our partner schools, that feeder pattern, as well as our programs at the center. We also create pathways and experiences for Birmingham City Schools youth and young adults to achieve economic mobility. And this is anchored to our high school internship and our apprenticeship model. And then we try to foster a healthy and food resilient community. So the ways in which we do that, I talked about Good School Food. What that is at our partner schools, that looks like in-school lessons, usually with a large focus on STEM and ELA, English language learning objectives. We also do after-school clubs like Farm Club and Culinary Club that are more tied to specific farming skills or culinary skills, as well as like socio-emotional development. Good Community Food is our community-facing program, launched in 2022. We've always had community gardening on our site, but we wanted to make it a bit more of an intentional program. And so what was created was a 9-month long program where folks can apply to have one of the beds at the Center for Food Education, and they are responsible for growing in that bed, but they're also responsible for coming to monthly workshops as a cohort. And those workshops actually range from preserving food to writing grants, like if you were to want to start a garden after this program, to pest management. It's a whole thing, lots of wraparound fun topics that they get to dig into as a cohort. And at the end of that 9-month program, they can actually apply to have a few garden beds built out on a site of their choosing. And all of that is done through USDA funding. It's been super successful. We've had full cohorts, if not cohorts that are bursting from the numbers. We don't have enough beds for everyone who wants to do it. But we're really excited about what the community that has built here at the center. We also offer community workshops and partner with our extension agency, like I said, free produce and seedling distribution, both at the farm stand here at the center and then also at Woodlawn High School. They have a farm stand that's run by the interns, and then the fellowship itself. All right. And then our Good School Food apprenticeship model. So like I said, this was first born, the high school internship kind of started first, and then the apprenticeship evolved after a couple of years of going through that programming and really listening to youth and what their needs and focuses were coming out of high school. Just a couple of points, and then I'll hand it over to Mohammed as long as he's ready. This year, initially, our internship and our apprenticeship model was only offered to students at Woodlawn High School. This year, we've actually opened up both programs to students from any Birmingham City school. And so I think this year at the 10 high school apprentices, I want to say out of the 7 high schools in Birmingham, we have at least 5 or 6 represented. During both of these programs, students are working to get culinary, farming, and other workforce development credentials. And then we're also expanding our partnerships for employers and post-secondary opportunities. So I think last week, Mohammed went with the group of interns and apprentices, and they visited Auburn University for 2 days. Sounds like it was a really fun trip, but we're trying to give them more opportunities to be plugged into some other resources. They started their own 4-H club this year. So we're really trying to figure out ways that we can leverage different resources and funding to help with whatever pathway they choose after high school. Mohammed, are you able to jump on?
Yes.
Wonderful. I'm going to toss it over to you then.
All right. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Mohammed. She have covered almost everything. So it's for me, it's more like I'm just this time serving as a support at this point. But also like I would, just kind of filling the gaps where is I'm on the part that I work on a lot. So I will start with telling you my story with Jones Valley specifically. Because as you know, I met Jones Valley on my 10th grade year in high school. And I was doing a field trip with them. We used to have a program called Seed to Plate field trip, where students would leave the high school, would leave their prospective schools and come to the farm and get exposure on all the on vegetables, and at the end of the day they'll make a small meal they will eat and go home with go home go back to school with that. So that was my first memory with Jones Valley. But come my 11th grade year, um, first of all, I don't know where I am, if you can hear me clearly, or should I change location?
You're okay.
All right, good. So in my 11th grade year, that's when I got into doing Jones Valley was invited to Birmingham City School to come, bring their program in. So Jones Valley is very big on student involvement. So and they wanted to be student center focused. So I was one of those students that got cherry picked to be a focus group, and from planning the Woodlawn High School, from planning how the farm would look like, what would go out there, all that stuff. Working with architectures and giving them my dreams and aspiration of how a farm should look like. So doing all of that, kind of like a that was when I was in high school. That was the experiences I got with them. And the cherry on the top that made me really love, Jones Valley Teaching Farm at the time, when we did our focus group for our focus sessions, we were doing twice a month at the least, and there was a time we were doing we were doing once a week. So, but when at the end of it, I was given a check. So, and I wasn't expecting it. And when they handed it to me, they said, "Hey, this is just an appreciation of your thoughts, and we value your ideas and what your input. So we want to pay you for the we want to as a gratitude and thank you for your services for this." They gave me a check, and I wasn't even expecting it in high school. So that made me like really like look back to and smile, say, I like this idea. I like the fact that my thoughts, my contribution was valued enough that they want to give me a token of appreciation. So it really stuck with me. And then when I graduated high school, a year later, um, you know, uh, the year I graduated high school, that's when the Woodland High School was, the farm over there. That's when we broke ground and started building. Um, 2016, I was, they reached back and asked me, hey, we need a farm, we need a help. Do you need any job? I say, yes, I'm interested, especially with that first fund of memory. I like, yeah, I want to go back. So I went back and for 2 months, the month of June and July, it was a summer job. I was working there. At the time, I didn't have any position, anything. I was just helping everywhere I was needed. They didn't give me a title, but I gave myself a title at the time. I called myself a floating agent. But I was, going around helping out, whatever. End of those 2 weeks, I was offered a full-time position to be the farm manager at Woodland High School. So as a youngster who just recently graduated high school to become a farm manager after site, it was, challenging, but at the same time, it was really, I really enjoyed it. So I came in and, kind of started working there. And, our first year, when we first started, there was no internship program. So we just, my direct supervisor at the time, he said, "Hey, let's start let's work with the program, trying to get these kids, at a consistent base all the time." So our first year, first cohort of interns, we just went into the school and cherry picked, like, "Hey, that kid might be good for this." We just picked. We didn't have no formality. We didn't have application process. There was no process there's no process or system in place at the time. We learned a lot as the program went on. We learned to make some applications, to set some standards, to have some rules and violations, like to have a whole orientation package. So now we are at a point where like now the code is very like streamlined. So our interns, when they come in, they have a we have an expectation of three pathways for them. It's either when they were at the end of the internship program with us, you expect them either to go through go straight to college after us, or if they don't decide that okay, college is not for them, maybe they want to go to the workforce. You want to also help them facilitate and make sure they are ready to go straight back into the workforce. Or the third option for them is like they decided, okay, I want to maybe take a gap year, or maybe I really not ready to go back straight into the workforce. We can then bring them in, and we have an apprenticeship an apprenticeship program where they can join in, which is another extra 1 year program where they can have an extensive education exposure on all the programs that we give, especially the be on agriculture and also all of on professional development. So I'm end right here, so in case I can answer any question you might have. And so I'm just kind of end it here. That's pretty much what we do here.
Perfect timing, Mohammed.
Thank you. And
Wade, do you want to introduce Kim? Should we just keep going?
Yeah, so just to remind folks, we're gonna have Kim share for half an hour, and then we'll have Q&A that both parties will engage in. So thanks, y'all. So Kim is somebody I look up to. She was the teacher of the youth program at GRuB when I participated as a teen a long time ago. And she's also the co-founder of GRuB. And she left GRuB in December 2019, and she just can't get enough of this work. So she's working with us again as a contractor through, I think, 3 different kind of projects. And she begrudgingly maybe jumped at the opportunity, I'm not sure, to share with y'all her history in youth programming and integrating with schools. So I'm happy to introduce Kim Gaffi. Take it away.
Thanks, Wade. I'm excited to share. The begrudging part is about Zoom. I'm not really a tech person, but Wade reminded me that, like the great Doug Fir, I too can be adaptable as things change. So I'm harnessing my Doug Fir today. I am not going to talk so much about what GRuB does now. I encourage folks to check it out, and Wade could present at a different time. Specifically, what he asked me to talk about is a journey that we took as an organization about 10 years ago. And it leads a little bit to what's going now, but GRuB does lots of other work besides what I'm talking about. So just wanted to give that. And I have so many questions for Jones Valley that I'm kind of distracted, and I'll try to focus on what I'm supposed to be doing here, but I'm so inspired by your presentation. And your PowerPoint, which was really well formatted, I just want to say. So I'm going to talk about the GRuB in the Schools journey. So, and really my hope is to just give you an idea of how we went from kind of after school programming to really working on how could GRuB influence our local school system more directly at the high school level. And yeah. I've been around GRuB since the end of '96. That was kind of before it was GRuB. And we were doing some community gardening and field trips for little kids. And then in 1999, we were approached by Community Youth Services, which was our regional youth program provider in the Olympia. I'm coming from Washington State. I forgot to say, and I wanted to acknowledge, I'm sitting on the traditional lands of Coast Salish tribes, and can talk more about the work I've got to do in tribal communities over the last 7 years, which has deeply inspired me. But I'm going to go back in time. So this is in Olympia, Washington. And 1999, we get approached by CYS, and they have, this brand new funding from the feds, which was the Workforce Investment Act. And they asked us, and at that point, there was just 2 of us, Blue Pete's and I were the co-founders of the organization. And they said, hey, how would you mind having 16 teenagers for 40 hours a week for 8 weeks in the summer? And having no idea what we were committing to, we were like, sure, that sounds great. How hard can that be? And so that was the birth of the Cultivating Youth Employment program. And while we didn't keep it that structure, over time, over 10 years, actually, we went from a summer program to then adding an after-school program. This is all for high school students, many of whom were not thriving in a traditional school setting or were justice involved. And then, and for some of that time, a portion of the work was funded through the WIA, the WIA funding. And then in around 2008, we were approached by, I'm going to stop for a second. What I want to say is that we were approached by a local high school principal, and he said that whatever you're doing is working. And when I come to GRuB, I see students alive, engaged, and inspired, and those same students are dormant in my high school. They are sitting at the back of the classroom, shut off. We are not serving these youth well. And whatever it is that you're doing, I need it. I need it to be part of my high school. So I wanted to take a second in terms of talk about like, what was it that we were doing that he thought worked? And, you know, and this is familiar to a lot of folks, people who are in youth work, you know, some of us really early on, we were.
Hey, Kim, can I pause you?
Yeah.
Do you want to share your slideshow?
Oh, awesome. Mine says that I am sharing.
I tried to share it and it won't let me because you're presenting.
Okay, let me try it again. See, this is what I said. Like, it's hard. This part's hard for me. You don't see it now?
I
I
was
could see it
seeing
that
it.
whole time.
Yeah, I was seeing it the whole time.
Oh, wait, it was you.
Okay, just me. I have the technical difficulties. Carry on.
Yes.
I will
Yes.
figure out what's going on my end.
Awesome. Okay, good. So the model we were working with was, is kind of articulated in this Venn diagram that two of my former colleagues put together. And the idea is, and this is familiar to all of you in terms of the work we all do, but it was how, you know, we wanted to, you know, farm self, which we now use the term growing. So how could we help young people grow themselves through, you know, we used like personal coaching, we used curriculum from Dismantling Racism Works. We grabbed stuff from the community, from the Food Project in Boston. We used kind of all these different tools to work on personal development. And then engaging youth in the land. So we were farming a small farm in a suburban neighborhood in Olympia, growing food for the food bank, growing food for market, and for the youth themselves. And then farming community, the idea was how are youth making a difference in the community? And so youth were building gardens for families with low incomes in their backyards, and doing public speaking around food issues and doing other work in the community. And the idea is that the outcomes were youth were healthier in lots of ways. Their leadership was engaged and ignited, and that ideally they were contributing to a larger picture of food justice in our community. And in terms of the how, we really, like I said, we're inspired by a lot of what the Food Project was doing in Boston. And, there was a study in the 90s that where folks went around and interviewed youth in really powerful youth programs. And the youth really articulated these three of these R's, that what was working for them is powerful relationships with adults, having true responsibility in the work that they were doing that was real, doing work that was relevant to either their past, present, or future. So a lot of youth at GRuB, we were doing this work around hunger. A lot of youth in our program had experienced hunger, were experiencing food insecurity, or they saw that the skills they were building were relevant to their future in terms of public speaking, showing up for work on time, or maybe that they were actually interested in food and ag. And then the Food Project added rigor because their first couple of years, they had kids who were like, that was the easiest summer of my life. It was like camp. And they were like, oh, is that what we want? And so rigor is really about how do you engage youth in work that lets them know they have more capacity than they thought, that they can work harder, whether emotionally, physically, intellectually, harder than they thought they could, which gives them a sense of power. So this principal approached us, and we really started what in my mind is the GRuB school experience. Like we had, to be honest, we had always said, wouldn't it be cool if we could start our own high school? Knowing that that was like never possible, but we'd just say that, when we'd send youth back to the traditional schools, we'd be like, someday we'll start our own high school. So when this principal came to us and basically said, I want to start a school within a school based on your model, it was like one of those moments in your life where the hair goes up on the back of your neck and it's like, oh my gosh, this could happen. So we jumped on board. We decided it was going to take at least 1.5 years to plan. And we met with school district staff and leadership and started talking about how do you take this after school youth development model and turn it into school in a way that doesn't kill it. And so after lots of meetings, we decided that the best model, so the question was, is it alternative learning? Is it career technical ed? And we decided to go for career technical ed, and really for 2 reasons. One, at least in our state, career technical ed has more money, because the idea is that programs are going to need more money for all the equipment, in engaging kids in career industry stuff. And the other piece was that we could certify current staff to be teachers. So for career technical ed, if you have experience in an industry, this is in Washington state, I don't know actually how it is in your states. But if you have industry experience, for instance, if you're a welder, you could decide to be a welding teacher, and you have to jump through a few hoops to become a welding teacher, but you don't have to go back to school per se and get your whole degree, an education degree. So it's kind of a bit of a shortcut to get people with industry experience into the schools. And so we were able to certify our own staff. And so we did the 1.5 years of planning. We wrote grants like crazy. And then we decided to do a 2-year pilot. And I will say that some of this was controversial in the organization, because what was going to happen is we had been serving multiple school districts through our employment program. This pilot was going to require us to work with just one school over 2 years. And that was not totally a popular notion. And so it was a very hard and deliberate decision to decide to go this way. But the idea was that maybe we can infiltrate the system. And so we went for it. And so we did a 2-year pilot where kids from Olympia High School were bused to GRuB. And we created a block class. So students did regular high school in the morning. They went on a bus, they came to the GRuB farm, and they experienced a 4-period block class. And that was, kind of over time became these 4 subjects. So agroecology and sustainability, agriculture, hunger, and the environment was the social studies framework we created. And then there was practice of sustainable ag and sustainable farm management. And so these were career technical ed frameworks that we wrote to build the foundation of this high school program. And just to be clear, they weren't taught separately like in school. It was all integrated, and really like social studies, a lot of that work happened more in the winter when the growing season wasn't active, and the science and CTE content came alive in fall and spring. And then we continued to do a summer program where students could earn a stipend and also earn more high school credit. So we did 2 years of a pilot that were successful. And in that 2nd year, students formed a planning committee and started getting ready to launch a new farm specifically for Olympia High School. And so those students earned additional high school credit, and they did all this research of different parcels of land. And they presented to the school board and said, here's our recommendations on where this new farm should be. And that 3rd year, a new program was born. Blue Peets, who was co-founder of GRuB, he left GRuB to become the teacher of this new program. And GRuB pivoted, and we started serving some of our old partners. So Capitol High School, which was next to us, and we actually served another school district that year. And so these stats are from what happened during those 3 years, the pilot and then the 3rd year. So 69% of youth decreased the amount of failed credits from the previous year. 87% of youth increased their science GPA from the previous year, or maintained at least a 3.0 if that's where they were at. Students entering the program with 13 or more behavioral offenses is how the school tracks it, reduced those offenses. I have thoughts about offenses, but that's for a different workshop. While in GRuB by 56 to 88%. And then that first year of the new farm for what became known as Freedom Farmers, 83% of Freedom Farmer students decreased the number of absences from their year before the program. There's lots of other stats. I have a whole report that if people want it, I could send it to you. And then I just have a little bit of youth voices. I mean, again, we're all familiar with the impact of connecting young people to land, but just a few things people said. Before I joined Freedom Farmers, I didn't care about my grades or attitude. I started out with the wrong crowd. I started becoming a person I didn't know. Now I'm passing all my classes and even making up credits from last year. I now have people that actually care about me in my life. My experience at Freedom Farmers has been amazing. It is the first time I've ever woke up in the morning and actually wanted to go to school. It is also the first time I ever put love and hard work into the community. Freedom Farmers is a true community and the reason I love coming to school every day. And then this is a picture of Deja. This is her presenting to the school board about the analysis that she and her cohort of students did around where the new farm should be. One of the things that clearly came out of it and all of our work is building what they call those 21st century skills. And it's interesting how the 4 R's sometimes show up. Like this youth said, this program taught me the importance of working hard and the importance of taking responsibility for your actions. I know how to keep a job and that everything isn't a free ride. This program has taught me teamwork and cooperation. I also strive to be someone with high integrity. So those 4 R's of the program kind of show up in what youth tell us at the end. This is Ella with her apples. This is not her testimonial, but one youth, the highlight of what he said is the love and acceptance of GRuB has done more for me than years of therapy in a week in a psych ward. Like that piece that we all see of the healing that can happen with connecting to land and purpose. So we came to think of this work at the time as pollination. So with the success of the GRuB school model that we were operating at GRuB and what became the Freedom Farmers at Olympia High School, we started getting approached by other school districts who were interested in this work. And so the Tumwater School District approached us and we worked with them over a period of a couple of years to help them launch fresh farm-rooted education for sustainability and health. After that, we were approached by the Eatonville School District, worked with them to help them start the GRITS program, all these acronyms. I feel like, NWYGN, NWYGN is not one of the better ones, but all the cool acronyms, growing relationships in the soil. And then we also have had less formal sites, like Cale Iverson works in north of here for Tacoma, and he started Abe's Acres using the GRuB school model. Elma high school and middle schools run similar programs. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about these programs. And if I, at some point, am running over, please rein me in. So Freedom Farmers is located on a beautiful site about a mile from Olympia High School. It's 15 acres of kind of old farmstead. And they went from that model I described, that 4-credit block class, to now having 2.5 years of programming where students can attend Freedom Farmers full-time for 2 years and then half-time for their junior or senior year. And they have a team of teachers now who teach multiple subjects in an integrated way on the farm. The youth are growing. This is an old number. I'm guessing it's more than this because they've expanded the farm, 16,000 pounds of vegetables every year for the school lunch program. Youth from Freedom Farmers go into the central kitchen and help cook because, as we know, like a lot of our school kitchens are not set up for beautiful raw organic produce. They're set up for stuff in bags that's already prepped. And so the youth are part of helping with that. And Paul Flock, the nutrition director, just talked about how beautiful the produce was. And he says, my staff and I are proud to be part of this effort. More importantly, the students are responding positively, which is evident in how much more GRuB produce at lunch is consumed versus other produce. Not that it's a competition, but maybe a little bit. And then the other program I mentioned is FRESH, Farm-Rooted Education for Sustainability and Health, serving the Tumwater School District. Each of these sites is independently run. GRuB doesn't manage these sites. FRESH is located on city property, which later became a park, serves multiple high schools. One of their innovations is they got approved that students are with them longer hours in the spring and fall and shorter hours in the winter, which is awesome for the growing season. And that the city of Tumwater is a really active partner and contributes to summer stipends every year, which is a key to their sustainability. And then I put a little link here, which, people can watch later. It's kind of a cute, cheesy video, news video about FRESH. I don't think I have time for it now. And then GRITS, Growing Relationships in the Soil. The Eatonville School District was given 3.5 acres of a historic farm in the Ohop Valley, which is at the base of Mount Rainier and is some of the most beautiful land I've ever seen. And they approached us and just said, hey, we just inherited this farm. We like what you do. Would you help us launch a program? So that program is led by Todd Morrish, a really wonderful educator, and he does a morning middle school program and an afternoon high school program using that basic model that I mentioned. So career technical ed. And then just wanted to say a little bit, the lessons learned could be like 10 pages long. But some things that we learned were that, we spent a year and a half planning with the Olympia School District for the model. And then when we launched Freedom Farmers, we pivoted and started serving other schools and districts without the same amount of time invested in planning and trust building. And so I think there were issues that came up in those first 2 years after the pilot that maybe could have been avoided if we had had more time with districts. Some of it was just miscommunication, perception of the program. A lot of it had to do about money, like people's perception that the school district would lose money if they enrolled kids in our program, which was not the case. Another lesson we learned was that sometimes the schools wanted us to do the impossible, like work with a senior who only has 3 credits and somehow get them to graduate that year or the year after. And so that piece of we bent towards serving a little bit younger students. And then also convincing the schools that sometimes you need to let a kid get a GED, and that's what they need to do. And that, keeping them in school might not be the best piece. And then again, some of it crystal clear with partners about true goals. Like we had some really clear goals at the beginning around, we were re-engaging students who were dormant. We were contributing to suicide prevention. We were doing a mental health intervention. And then as the program became successful, people wanted it to be a panacea for everything. So they wanted students to, score really high on science standardized tests. They wanted students to do really well in all of their standard classes that we weren't teaching. All of these other pieces that we had to really stand true to what the goals of the program were and not be unrealistic about what we could do. And then as with all of these programs, long-term sustainability, we got schools to agree at the beginning. We explained that this model was more expensive than traditional school. And then it's, just in all of our work, it's the fight year after year to maintain that level of investment and funding. So that journey continues. And then also just that stipends for the summer part of the program are worthwhile and bring kids along that might not engage otherwise. And that gives them a sense of honoring their time, but also contributing to their family financially. Wade, I'm sure I missed a million things, but
well, you're ahead of schedule. So if you wanted to play the video, or if there was something that you were dying to cover that you trimmed at the last minute, we have a little bit of time, 9 more minutes.
Okay, let's watch the cheesy video. I don't, sometimes this doesn't work very well. So I will, well, we'll see if this works. If it doesn't work, just flag me and we won't do it. Oh, and then there's that, where the link doesn't actually go where I thought it was gonna go. Okay, no video. It's not happening. It would take
That's
me
okay.
too long
We could
to
jump
find
to Q&A right now. We have it blocked out till 12:30. So anybody who wants to chime in, oh, you want to say something about your last slide first before we
Oh,
start?
I was just gonna say that like I said, GRuB does a lot of different work, and so people can check that out at goodgrub.org. And then also, sometimes people want help thinking about whether this model would work for their district. And I'm happy to talk to people. I'm happy to talk to people a certain amount of time for free. And then, if you wanted more technical assistance, we could talk about what that looks like. But I know the devil's in the details. So often we want to know all the crunchy details, which hopefully we'll answer some during Q&A. Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kim. I'm happy to kind of monitor, like if you all want to use like the raise your hand function on Zoom, and I can kind of monitor whose hand goes up first and kind of just go through the list. And it could be a question for any of the three presenters or a particular person. And we have plenty of time. So jump into that if you all want.
Because I talked so fast, all that coffee I drank.
Yeah, feel free to ask just general questions too about NWYGN and what that means, and or if you just anything you have to say, speak up.
How do I raise my hand?
I saw your physical hand being raised.
I know. This is how I raise my hand. Can
Kim
I ask
Gaffi,
a quick
and then
question?
Kim Romaine Bondi, and then Emily after that.
Leah and Mohammed, I have a question for you. You mentioned we're also looking at apprenticeships, and I was wondering if you could speak to what credentials you've been able to kind of put together around workforce development, like what credentials are students learning or gaining in the apprenticeships?
Mm-hmm. I would say it's still something that we are trying to figure out exactly which ones we will offer consistently. Some things that we do are like the food handler certification or serve safe, because we are working with we're doing a lot of culinary stuff, not just farming. I believe there's also a tractor certification.
There's a produce safety one too.
Food and beverage.
Food and beverage, and that one's done through like Lawson State, which is a local university.
Jeff State,
sorry, wrong state. Thank you, Mohammed. But yeah, so we're still building that out as well. It's kind of like a hodgepodge as we bring in partners to see what they can offer too.
Great. Kim Romaine Bondi.
Well, thank you so much to all three of you. I'm up in Winthrop, and we have a high school program we started about 4 years ago, which was right when COVID started. So we put it on hold after the first semester, and it really just started as a horticulture class. And then we've been building it up again the last 2 years. So we're pretty excited. And we have 28 students this year, which is fantastic. Teens for a really narrow window of time during their 80-minute blocks twice a week. And then we have 2 interns this year, which has really been fantastic. And they're in an alternative high school in our area. So they come over for a whole day on Thursdays. So just a little background where we're at. This horticulture class that we're offering it does get CTE credits, and it also offers a science credit. We personally are not CET certified, so we actually teach right through. We co-teach with the high school teacher who's actually leading the class. But I'm just kind of curious on perspective, and this could be for anyone else who might have some perspective on this too. We've had a little bit of the I don't know, for lack of a better word, is a slacker culture. It's kind of come with that. And we're trying to figure out ways to like make kids feel like this is really important. And our farm, our school farm, we've got a 2-acre farm on school campus. So they literally just walk out the door to their space. And this year feels better, but last year it was really horrifying because we just had some kids who didn't want to be there because they were getting their science credits and it was the easiest science credit you could get. So I'm just kind of looking for a little advice from anyone on like what do you do to kind of shift that cultural value of being on a really cool, it's a privilege to be on this really cool space as your classroom. Anyways, just a big question, I know, but I'd take any thoughts.
We, oh, sorry, Mohammed, you want to go?
Yeah, I just want to, share a little bit on that, and input something that I've seen work on, my experience here with working with, high schoolers. One thing is to give them ownership, and when I say give them ownership is a way to kind of like involve them in all the decision making, asking them the bigger question. I say, don't not underestimate them, not making the decision. And even when you're gonna make those decisions, like the firm decisions, sometimes guiding them towards it, like so it becomes something like they made the decision. So they will be take more ownership to it, and at the same time they will take more pride into whatever they're doing. So I think that's the way to kind of keep them engaged and keep them wanna be there. Like for instance, for at Jones Valley here, like the interns, like they are part of from our crop planning. So where we do crop planning, they take part of it, they take inputs, they make a, though we do, I do the back end and finalize maybe the what crop you're gonna be hard, sowing, but they're gonna go and make a choice, say, hey, I wanna grow this type of carrot, I wanna grow this, picking variety. So they take pride in that. So they, at the end of the day, when those things comes around, they're like, oh, I choose that, I did that. So you're gonna see them making, having that pride. So I hope it makes sense what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Just getting that one.
Much appreciated. Good thoughts.
I agree with a lot of that too. Definitely giving ownership. Our school farm has not really been, it hasn't had structure for a few years. And so we're finally bringing that back. We have a farmer there now. And one of the things that is extremely important is to give the youth sort of a space, like give them time to vent. I mean, if you're not, like we're not, we're a nonprofit too, and then we're at the school. But we're not teachers at the school. And so they can come out and vent for a little bit if it's like a productive conversation. But also our farmer lets the kids choose what they want to plant. Like they just pulled out these maca ozette potatoes this week. And then they were like, what about purple potatoes or red potatoes? And so she's finding those potatoes so that the kids can plant what they want. And they experiment a lot too. So there's like that particular farm, there's not like, I mean, we have certain things that she wants to get in the ground based on, ours is farm to school. So they're providing produce for the school. But within that, like they don't all have to be these orange perfect carrots, it can be different kinds of carrots, or it can be parsnips, or just kind of experimenting and learning about different cultures and foods and things too. And that has really drawn kids in where previously they were just coming out because they wanted to get out of class and they did not want to participate. Like they were pushing each other around in wheelbarrows, and now they come out and they're really interested in it finally, again, after several years of not really having a structured farm at the school.
Thank you.
If I can highlight one thing Aaron said, is that about giving them a room to vent. Like, the thing is, as a farmer, sometimes like, or as a manager of a site, you have goals, you have things like you have projects that you want done, but you just throwing them right in it, it's not gonna help. It's not gonna make the work go any faster. Curving out like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, almost like a check-in time, or if not a check-in, maybe a wrap-up time, like where we have something over here we call a straight talk. So a straight talk is a time where the student will just say, hey, I'm very, it can be a wide range of topics. They can just choose whatever they want to talk about. It can be about music they're interested, like, oh, have you seen this video? let have them, they just want a time to connect, a time to just discuss whatever is in their mind, and and no prejudgment, like setting that open sight to them. So I think it's very worth it. It gives them more energy to be able to just, when they go out there, all right, let me walk, finish this, so I can go sit down and have a quick discussion and talk about somebody. So, and giving them also the green light to say, hey, if you need to pull me aside and talk to me something, give them that green light. So sometimes they just like, you know what, I want to talk to somebody first before I do anything. Like giving them that type of green light also helps.
I mean, I want to second what everybody said so far about ownership. Was kind of the first thing that came to my mind. At Superfresh, we promote a lot of that through youth leadership. So yeah, crop planning, decision making, stuff like that, but really letting them sort of, yeah, I think deciding what to plant is something where we have our soap company that is really youth managed and generated, and they'll like develop new ideas. And a lot of the staff role is sort of a facilitator type of role. We do actually some traditional instruction, but I think a lot of times like putting youth in charge of things, and it doesn't just have to be in charge of other people if that's not their comfort zone or their specific interest area. They could be in charge of building a new worm bin, or, and coming up with that design and pitching it to the team and helping get the supplies and all that stuff. And of course, this isn't foolproof, but I do think that youth leadership is really helpful. And like the vent sessions, I love that. That's great. We do like just a daily check-in too. Everybody checks in, we circle up. It can be lighthearted, and it can also be an opportunity to share more if people are comfortable. And then we also do like individual check-ins with kids too, because often if they're not, engaged or into it, there might be something behind that we want to find out about. So we collaborate with school staff on kind of figuring that out and determining if there's like more to the story and getting their side of things. But yeah, I definitely second the ownership, and I think youth leadership is a really powerful way to incorporate that.
Awesome.
I'm loving all the engagement on this question. I am writing down other people who put their hands up, so I'm tracking on you. Any additional thoughts on this topic?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Nirvani. I work with Till manager of our youth and families program, and I just want to say I'm really happy to be a part of this network, and thank you to Kim and GRuB. We use a lot of the curriculum available and integrated into our youth and families programming and our camps and after school classes, and have really been excited about all the connections that are there. I am a trained high school teacher. I taught for 20 years in New York City, in Brooklyn, and we had a farm in our school called the HSPS Youth Farm, and we worked with Green Gorillas and BK Farmyards to build this farm. So I was the teacher on that end in the classroom, and thinking about a lot of things, but related to your question, Kim, about engaging your youth. I found, and I still find, that cooking really, really helps to connect youth to what they're growing and where it's coming from, and a lot of the sort of foundational work that you are trying to get to. High school youth are, as any youth, people love food, and it's really a great way to connect and engage and get some sort of investment and excitement around what you're growing. And so that I always find that that's a fun way and a great way of engaging. And also somebody mentioned it in the chat. I was just going to say sort of like cultural representation is always really important. And I find that using food is helpful to sort of represent, but also like stories around food and growing food, and also some of the hardships when it comes to history around farming and growing food, and understanding that and bringing that into the space and allowing that for the space, that everyone's relationship with the land and with growing food is not beautiful and is important to allow youth to express that and know that that lives there. So.
Thank you. Emily, your hand was up a while back. Are you ready?
I'm good.
Okay. Jessica was next.
Thank you. So hi, I teach at the farm at Franklin Pierce School District in Tacoma, Washington. And so this is my first year teaching at the farm. So I'm teaching food justice in action. And then I'm also teaching alongside another teacher, Aaliyah Faison, who's actually on here as well. And she's teaching eco design. And so previous to that, I was teaching in building at one of our high schools in our district. I was teaching biology and physical science. So this is a great opportunity that I've gotten to take on and hold. So to some of the things that I've learned, and I take no credit for any of this, these are new things that I've learned being out at the farm, which I greatly appreciate. And that's being a part of the team again with Aaliyah, with Emily, with Benita, with Hannah, who are on the call as well, are doing those check-ins. So when we start out our day, the students come to the farm from the high schools, and we teach our classes out at the farm. And so we do check-ins, we check in, who are you, how are you, and maybe it's something, what do you need for that day, and things like that. And it's a great opportunity for students to come in and talk about how they're feeling, and maybe they're not bringing their 100% that day, or maybe they might need some supports and things like that. And so that also helps, because that makes it apparent to, their peers and who we're working with that day, to know, like, okay, maybe I might need to offer up some help and things like that. And it's not necessarily like every single one of the high schoolers is going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to, show up and things like that. But that you might have those onesie twosies and things like that. Or even those students that might not always engage or have that buy-in might come in and be like, oh, well, let me go dump this compost wheelbarrow for this person or something like that, So it's ways to kind of get the students engaged that kind of helps and things like that. And so like Nirvani was saying, we do community meals, and we're trying, so that's something new to me as well, getting the students to kind of harvest things from and build meals around what we harvest from the farm and everything. And so they're able to bring their cultures, they bring their whole selves into that. And I say that to say, I got an email from one of my colleagues, because I have a student in my class who's English isn't his first language, and they were wondering why he's so engaged, why he shows up all the time and things like that. And I'm just kind of telling them the same thing I'm telling you, is that they're able to kind of show up and bring their whole selves, and they don't have to separate who they are from what they're learning, and they're also coming in and bringing things that they're able to teach to their peers. And so that helps as well. And just kind of understanding and knowing that everybody's coming from different places. And so keeping the space open for students to talk about what's going on with them. And it's not necessarily doesn't have to be super vulnerable, but just making the space welcome. And so if somebody wants to chuckle, if somebody wants to laugh, or somebody wants to poke fun or things like that, just immediately shutting that down and just letting them know, hey, this is a space for us to be comfortable. We want to build this community, and we continually use that term, community. We're trying to give you some tools to not only use here while you're in this class, but also to take with you when you leave here, because eventually you're going to be 18. You're going to be in the world. You're going to have a job. You're going to be working with people you may not necessarily know, you may not necessarily like, but the fact is you're going to be there because you might need that job at that point in time and things like that. And these are tools we can help you develop to deal with those types of situations. And just kind of keeping those things in mind have been really helpful in keeping the students engaged and wanting to participate. Again, it's not always 100% proof, but it does help. Thank you.
Hey, I can. It's not right now I am.
All right, maybe a Zoom glitch. I think Bear was up next. Go ahead, Bear.
Howdy, my name's Bear. I'm a youth program manager on a nonprofit farm based in Hillsboro, Oregon. My question is more about compensation and compensating youth. So we are funded workforce development program that employs youth through a couple of different avenues. And I guess I'm curious to hear about sort of how you, both GRuB and also the teaching farm, like how you ended or landed on stipends as the best form of compensation. We pay wages for the youth who work here on our farm, but always curious to explore like what would work best for youth and what is going to work best with our funding streams, and that's what we've done since we started. So I'd just be curious to hear like what do you find is the benefit of stipended work over wages?
Wade, I can give a little bit, but I think we've gone in both directions, and part for us in terms of the school programs has been one, just feasibility has been part of it. In order for the school model to exist in schools, I mean, it's actually a whole like 2-hour answer. So I will say that we, for when it's an educational experience and the program exists only for that, we have sometimes used stipends. We also have layers of tiers at GRuB now where it's wages depending on position. And but we've gone back and forth. Some schools feel like they can't do stipends. We did a lot of research to make sure that it was okay. It's kind of been all over the place, and so some of it has been based on how much of their experience is work versus how much of their experience is education, and wanting to be real about that piece of it in terms of we can serve a lot more youth at a tier 1 educational level, offering stipends, and we can serve fewer at a higher leadership level at wages. And so, yeah, I think it's a great question, and I think it can look different ways in different models.
Yep. I wanted to chime in because we didn't actually say explicitly. I think Mohammed had mentioned that he received a stipend, and that was pre-internship program being established. Our interns do make wages, or we pay them hourly wages. And then our apprentices are actually fully salaried with benefits. And with our internship program, we also receive sponsorship, a corporate sponsorship. They fund that program every year faithfully for us. And they're paying those wages. They're paying for equipment like jackets and boots and things that interns get every year as well. So that they don't have to spend their wages on the things they need to work with us. But yeah, just wanted to also make that clear because I don't think we had said that.
Awesome. Thanks, Leah. I just wanted to call attention, if folks aren't noticing, there are some occasional responses to these topics in the chat. So if you're not checking that out, take a look at those. But we can keep going if anybody else has any responses to Bear's question. Maybe just out of curiosity, with like your physical hand or the Zoom hand, how many of your all's programs pay stipends or wages to your youth? Yeah. Okay. Both. Awesome. Thanks, y'all. Xavier, go for it.
All right. Hi, my name is Xavier. I'm with New Roots in Seattle, Washington. And so going back to when we were talking about motivating youth, our program, it was a 12-week program this summer, which just wrapped up this week, actually. And something we did is a youth-led action research project where through photography, through pictures, the youth would identify issues in the food system that they see in their community. And then together we wrote a one-page report, which will now be displayed at their high schools over the fall. And me and my assistant are going to take the extra step of sending this report to leaders in the community, like the governor's office, our congresswoman, city officials. And I think that as we taught our curriculum on like the issues in our food system and the inequalities that we see, they started getting a clearer sense of like, oh, this project that we're doing could help create change of these issues that we're learning about. And I think that really motivated them want to continue learning and getting more invested because they knew that this work that they were doing could have an impact to their community. So that's my 2 cents about motivating youth. But I do have a question for the presenters organizations. I'm curious to know regarding funding, especially in the early years, what kind of sustainable funding opportunities did you guys create or have? Because we all know that relying specifically on grants is not very sustainable. And my program's in a situation where like we want to continue stipending youth, and we'd like to be able to start hiring youth leaders every year from the previous cohort every summer. But at the moment, funding is a challenge, and I've been trying to think about how to create a more sustainable funding source.
I think for us, and even in early years, trying to diversify, whatever your pool is of funding, so you aren't reliant on just grants. If there are community foundations who can sponsor you, corporations who can sponsor you, like going to other folks outside of like grant applications, and trying to make your case there, I think has been super helpful for us in terms of just diversifying that pool of where we're pulling the money from each year. And some years you're going to get it, still from the sponsorship. Some years you're not, but just having a diverse pool. If you have a board or a junior board or anybody who's helping like govern the leadership of your organization, who also has connections or who can make those connections for you, has also been super helpful for us, so that you're not just having to do it all the grunt work yourself.
I second all that on it's kind of ever shifting, like diversify your funding. But I would also encourage partnerships, which I'm sure you're doing, but we have a lot of our grants are actually paid. Like we have right now 3 different funding sources paying kids that we actually don't even have to manage. So it's interesting. And then we have like an in-house one that's also paying kids. So literally 4 different payrolls. But anyway, it's complicated on our end, but we keep it simple for the kids. But it is because of our partnerships with workforce, organizations, as well as like the school district and the regional ESD in this area, that we're able to pay quite a few kids to do this work and other internships and jobs throughout the school.
Yeah, I'll just say that I've just been doing the nonprofit thing for almost 30 years. And it's just like that piece of every time there's that enticing, what feels like sustainable funding, it's like just being so clear on what the trade-offs are in terms of like, oh, we can get, WIOA funding, and it means we're going to have to jump through these hoops, can serve these students, blah, blah, blah. And so, Wade and I have had lots of conversations about that diversification, and also kind of that, what Katrin just said in terms of how can you truly do what you want to do and have partners that recognize that it's their mission too and will invest. But there's been times where GRuB has chased, not too bad, but, chased certain funding that slowly pulls us away from the best of who we are. And it's been with that pursuit of sustainability. And so I just think it's it's really, it's about our sector, the issue with our sector in general. But, so I think it's, creating that diversified field of crops, a little bit of government, a little bit of philanthropy, a little bit of earned income, and those partnerships. I think the partnerships are probably the most powerful piece.
I'm just wondering if this mysterious corporate partner in Alabama has branches in Washington and Oregon.
Look at your banks. That's
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Katrin just, if y'all didn't see that in the chat, Nonprofit AF, did y'all ever read their blog or follow them on social media? Good stuff. Sometimes NSFW, but you know, if you can get over that, there's some good stuff there. Any other thoughts on Xavier's question? Funding? We're just about to time, so anybody have something at the tip of their tongue?
Wade, I just wanted to say that if folks do have follow-up questions specifically around like the school model or career technical ed or any of that, I'd be happy to have like little freebie half-hour conversations with whoever. And, you know, you can email me at kimgaffi@gmail. It's like once you get into the school system, and a lot of you are already in the school system, but if you're from the nonprofit side, it is like a fascinating, I want to say shit show, but that's not it. Maybe a little bit. So anyway, I'm happy to be a navigator on what it means to get into the school system in terms of school, not serving on the outside of the school, but trying to slowly transform schools, which, you know, that's lifelong work. And but anyway, I'm happy to answer questions on 101.
Yeah,
And
thanks, Kim.
I think we'll send an email out asking who is comfortable with sharing their contact info in a list so that everyone can access it if people are comfortable with that. So just look for a follow-up email on that.
Yeah, Melina?
Yeah, I just wanted to take the opportunity while everyone's here to let you know, and I'll put the link in the chat. The Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Conference is happening in February 2024. We're stacking it at the same venue the couple days before the Small Farms Conference. So if you wanted to attend both of them together, it'd be really easy. But right now is call for proposals. And while we are a small network here of folks serving older youth, it is growing, and there is a lot of interest in folks who are coming to the conference to hear from programs like yours and from even youth engaged in your program. So if you're interested in bringing a presentation or a lightning talk or a short course to the conference, I put the link in the chat, and I'd love to give you a platform to share more.
Awesome. Well, I got a whole bunch of NWYGN stuff to plug and mention. So as we said earlier, we're hoping to do this every quarter. So if anybody is really hankering for a certain topic to be covered, please let us know. If you would like to present about a topic, also please let us know. And we'll meet as a planning team and get a save the date out for winter. Also, we would love more people on the planning team. It's fairly light lifting, right? Katrin and Aaron and Melina, fairly light, but with good-hearted people. So I think we're meeting like very briefly just once a month, especially to plan for these. It's fairly easy, but we would love more people to be a part of that. So if you're interested in that, let us know. There's no initiation process or hazing. You just show up with what you can, you know, and where you're from. Looking ahead, we are still going to do an in-person gathering in late winter. We don't have a date or location set yet. So if you are having some twinkly thoughts of, oh, I would love to host an in-person gathering for, you know, 20 to 40 people and show off your space and host us for awesome conversations and activities, let us know as well. But we're thinking about that. And then for those of y'all, I don't know how everybody found out about this, but one of the ways that we got the info out was through the NWYGN listserv. So if you're not a part of that, it's pretty easy to be a part of that. Let us know that as well, and we'll add you pretty quickly. And lastly, thank you to Kim, Leah, and Mohammed for giving us your time and talking about things you're very skilled at and passionate about. And yeah, thank you everybody else for taking time out of your schedule to join us.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, one more question, Melina. If people wanted to view the recording, or if somebody missed it, how can we access the recording?
Yeah, thanks. I'm gonna work with Nadia to get it up on YouTube, and then we'll send out the link to the full, everyone who was registered, even the folks who didn't come. And we may even just post it on that NWYGN landing page that we made, as long as that's something that we can do. I'll check with-
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
And if you aren't on the NWYGN listserv, you can sign up on that landing page that I put in the chat earlier. You can also navigate to it from the Oregon Farm to School Network website. So I'm sure you can find it. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for your inspiring work, everybody.
Thank you so much. Great to meet everyone.